Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, I'm here to tell you that Marnie has apparently turned into a Pokémon. The supporter card Marnie has been reincarnated as a Pokémon card featuring a fox. It's a new Thievul card, but it's also kind of Marnie. Let me explain. Now, our translation here comes from the lovely Antoine Boulet, and if we start off having a little bit of a look at the basics here, I mean, it's Thievul, right? Don't get too excited. 100 HP is actually super annoying because it means you don't get level ball. And that makes me genuinely a little bit sad. I want to be able to use level ball, boo hiss, etc. We got a retreat cost of 1, which is at least nice and low. We've got a weakness to grass, which on the one hand is fine, and on the other hand, nobody's really playing grass right now, so really nothing to worry about too much. And being a darkness Pokemon does mean you hit weakness on that ghost horse thing, so that ain't all bad, ladies and gentlemen. That ain't all bad. It also means it partners very nicely with Eternatus. We will get on to have a look at Eternatus in a little bit. But what can we say about Thievul? Well, look, we ain't spending much time having a look at the attack here. The attack is really not good. Whoa, 2 energy, 60 damage. Yeah! I mean, pre-rotation, this won't even get a KO on the Giratina from Unified Minds because they've got 130 rather than 120. Incidentally, another great example of where there is a big difference between 120 and 130, like I do tell you all quite often. So, no. But the ability here, the ability here is kind of beautiful. Once during your turn, when you play this card from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may use this ability. Each player shuffles their hand and puts it at the bottom of their deck, then draws 4 cards. When I told you that this was Marnie, I really meant it. Now, incidentally, there is, of course, one real big difference between this and Marnie. You only get 4 cards. Marnie, you both shuffle, put them at the bottom of your deck just like this. But with Marnie, you get 5 cards, your opponent gets 4. Here, you get 4 cards, and your opponent gets 4. And I've already seen a whole bunch of people basically going, well, hang on a second, what's he? Why would I already... Well, they're not necessarily directed at me, but a lot of people saying, why would we play this when we've got Marnie? And I'm afraid the answer to that question is because Marnie's a supporter. Like I showed you the other day, Umbreon VMAX, and Umbreon VMAX has the exact same ability as the old Lycanroc GX. And the fact that I'm saying about the old, long rotated Lycanroc GX makes me feel very old. But at the moment, you could say, well, hang on a second, Umbreon gusts when you evolve it. We got boss's orders, why do we need it? But you could have said the exact same thing about Lycanroc, and why would we need that when we've got Guzma? And the answer is, because it's not a supporter. We needed Lycanroc even with Guzma because it wasn't a supporter. We need Umbreon even with Boss because it's not a supporter. And we need Thievul even with Marnie because it's not a supporter. There are many things you can do with the fact that this isn't a supporter. So Marnie is clearly a disruption card. You want to try and hurt your opponent. You want to try and put them down to a low hand size. Maybe you know they've got a good hand. Maybe they've just got a large hand. Maybe they knocked out a VMAX and they took 3 prizes, so you know they've got 3 extra cards. I don't know. But for whatever reason, you think they've got a pretty good hand, so you want to try and stop them. How do you stop them? Marnie. The thing is, you often also want to use boss's orders to drag a Pokemon off the bench into the active and KO it. Oh. Well, that's a bit of a problem. You cannot play boss's orders and Marnie in the same turn. You want to hurt your opponent while also hurting your opponent. You want to drag them active with boss's orders to take a KO while also disrupting their hand with Marnie to make sure that they have a real difficulty responding to the KO. You want to do both. Hi, Thievul. I mean, to be honest, nowadays, you can actually use Thievul and Umbreon V Max. So what you can actually do is disrupt their hand and Gust and still have your supporter for the turn. I fear that might be a little bit too much, but it's an option, ladies and gentlemen. It is absolutely an option. But it's things like you might not have Marnie in hand, so you really want to play Professor's Research to dig deep into your deck to find a Marnie, but even if you find it, you can't play it. So you Professor's Research for a Thievul, play Thievul. You're good. Or something like a Great Ball. Great Ball cannot find you a Marnie, but Great Ball can find you a Thievul to get you a Marnie, or a Pokemon that does the same thing. This is actually one of the reasons I'm genuinely upset that Thievul has 100 HP. If it had 90, you'd be able to search it out with Level Ball, and that would mean you could essentially Level Ball for Marnie, which would clearly be nuts. The fact that you can't do that is obviously a little bit sad. But there are still a bunch of options here. And those are the three main reasons why Thievul is going to be great even with Marnie in the format. Number one, you can play it in the same turn as a supporter. Number two, you can play a supporter to go and find it. Number three, it is way more easily searched as a Pokemon than it would be as a supporter. So sure, if you really want, you can look at this and go, we've already got Marnie. But that is really missing the point of what makes this card so gosh darn good. Now, if this was a basic Pokemon, I would feel extremely confident saying it is a phenomenal card that's going to see a huge amount of play. Because back in the Platinum expansion, we had the Giratina with Let Loose, that when you benched it, made both players shuffle the hand into their deck and draw 4 cards. That saw a huge amount of play. It was great. And then in Shining Legends, we had Marshadow, which had the ability Let Loose, which when you play it from your hand onto your bench, both players shuffle a hand into their deck and draw 4 cards, and it was great and saw a huge amount of play. Were this a basic, there would be absolutely no question about how great this is. But being basic was a problem. Like, towards the end, so many people were calling for Marshadow to be banned, because the problem is, turn 1, play a Quick Ball, grab Marshadow, and your opponent, instead of starting with like a 6-card hand, assuming they only put 1 basic Pokemon down, they start with a 4-card hand instead. Being able to disrupt your opponent before they've even drawn a card is clearly, mean. So what Pokemon have done? I mean, this is clearly the new Let Loose, right? Let's be clear about that. This is the new Let Loose. But Pokemon have basically turned around and gone, you know what? We did this a couple times as a basic Pokemon. It was a bit of a problem, especially in the format we've got nowadays where, well, you can't play a supporter turn 1 going first, so being able to do that really would be just absolutely harsh. So it gets printed again, but this time it comes around as a Stage 1 Pokemon, so it's got a little bit of protection from the overwhelming silliness. Make no mistake about it, this is still a phenomenal card. This isn't a good card, this is a great card. It is not on the same level as your Let Loose Pokemon, because it's a Stage 1 rather than a basic. Now, you can still use Scoop Up Net to reuse it, but you've got to either have a Nickit sitting on the bench ready to evolve, or you've got to wait a turn while you bench Nickit and then next turn play Thievul. It is not in the same league as Marshadow or Giratina, but Marshadow, especially in the format it was in, was kind of a format-defining card in a lot of ways. This is a fun tech. Now, incidentally, I have been focusing largely on the disruption here. Don't forget this is draw. Like, this will allow you to play a supporter card and then get a new hand of 4 cards. Generally speaking, Marshadow and Giratina were played largely for disruption rather than extra draw. I see the situation being the same here, but make no mistake about it, you absolutely can use this as an extra draw card to draw extra cards during your turn. If you're going to do that, we've got things like the Inteleon line with Drizzile that will search for 1 trainer, and then you evolve up into Inteleon, and you search for 2. We've got things like Crobat that will draw you 2 cards, and then if you evolve it up into Golbat, it will draw you 3. we've got other options if you just want it for draw. Although, to be clear, for draw it will work. But for disruption and a handy little bit of draw, this is a 5 Wassy card. I think this is a great card. Not every deck will be able to use it though. The fact that it is a stage 1 Pokemon rather than a basic really will hurt the amount of play it sees. Certainly if you're playing Eternatus and you can find the room, this seems like a no-brainer. Certainly if you're playing any kind of disruption deck and you can find the room, this seems like a no-brainer. It's a weird kind of card because I want to give it 5 Wassies and I have, and I do feel pretty good about it. But by the same token, this is not, by virtue of it being a stage 1 Pokemon, going to fit into every deck. But the ones into which it will fit... But I want to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section, would ya? Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.